What's up guys, Coach Kane here, and I'm about to explain to you why these turtle mitts by Hit and Move are a complete ripoff. And it's probably not for the reasons you guys might think. So to explain why they're a complete ripoff, I'm actually going to give you guys a little bit of a backstory for context. It starts with my father, Coach Brad Carlton, and an idea of his that quite literally revolutionized the way that boxing mitt work is done. It was an idea that's so simple and yet so innovative, he couldn't believe that no one had thought of it before. And that idea was actually the first double-sided focus mitt, an idea that came to him over 20 years ago when he first started being a boxing coach. At the time, he was watching a lot of those old school how to box tapes and DVDs by coaches like Kenny Weldon, Russ Amber of Rival Boxing, and in particular, a great striking coach by the name of Gil Martinez. While watching tapes of Gil hold pads for his fighters, my dad noticed that he would frequently catch the jab to the body by bracing his mitt against himself and allowing them to punch the back of his hand. And after my dad began implementing that technique of holding mitts with his own fighters, he found himself having to constantly remind them to pull some of the power off of their punches, because it's really easy to injure the hand when holding the mitts that way. After seeing Gil train that way and implementing it himself, he realized that presenting the jab to the body this way was a far more accurate representation of the punch for his fighters. And he realized that the only drawback was that he had to have them pull their power off of their punches for fear of hurting his hand, which is the exact moment that he realized that traditional style mitts just weren't going to cut it, and that they needed a second side on the back of the hand. Being that he was a boxing coach and not a boxing equipment manufacturer, for years he settled with the solution of asking fighters to reduce the power on their punches, and continued to catch the punches on the back of his hand the same way that he'd learned from watching tapes of Gil Martinez. For about 15 years he stuck with that solution, and hoped that some manufacturer would eventually see the need for a double-sided mitt and create the product that he envisioned. But after all that time and still no product on the market, he eventually decided that he would have to tackle the issue himself. And that's when he created the first prototype of what would come to be called Versamitts. And as you can see, the first prototype was literally just a pair of average traditional mitts with a pad sewn on the back. And with these, not only was he able to catch the jab to the body the same way that Gil did, but he was also able to catch all the other body shots that would normally require a coach to contort into some less than ideal positions. If you're familiar, then you know that most coaches catch their shovel hooks to the body by either double stacking their hands in a pronated position like this, or by wrapping around and catching it around the backside of their elbow. Both of these positions are really quite risky for the coach to be in, and can lead to a lot of injuries and quite a bit of chronic joint pain. Not only that, but they're also relatively unrealistic in terms of how a punch is actually thrown and landed on the target. When the coach is able to catch a body shot in a neutral wrist position, it's much safer for their joints. And not only that, but it's also a much more realistic representation of what the punch should look like for the fighter. And by doing it this way, the punch actually has a much better trajectory, one that goes in towards the opponent's spine, meaning that it's going to penetrate a lot deeper on the body and cause more damage to the opponent, making for a much more effective punch. Compared with the trajectory that's achieved by holding the mitts the traditional way, this is more of a swiping punch and isn't likely to penetrate the body as deeply as a neutrally held punch. And after creating this first prototype, my dad was actually really satisfied with the level of protection that it provided the back of his hand. But he realized that it had some primary issues that needed to be dealt with if it was going to be a hit product. Being that it was just a traditional style mitt, the hard EVA style foam allowed for much of the power from the backside of the mitt to be transferred through the body. And although my dad was able to take it, he knew that most people wouldn't want to deal with that kind of power transmitting through their body. The other issue was that it was a slightly rounded shape for the back pad, which led to a lot of slippage and a potential for the fighter to roll their wrist when landing on the backside of the target. So after rethinking the design, he had the second prototype made, and this time included a flat pad with a recessed target so that it would better catch the punches of his fighters. He added a thicker and more absorbative pad on the palm side and connected the two pads with a webbing in between, as opposed to sewing the pad to the back of the hand compartment like with the original prototype. Both of the first two prototypes were made by a man named Luis Stitch Gonzalez out of Phoenix, Arizona. And after my dad had some requests for a third prototype, he said that the project was probably going to be too much for him and recommended that we go to someone named Sergio Garibay. Now, if you're familiar, you know that Sergio Garibay is famous for making custom gear for names like Freddie Roach, Manny Pacquiao, Bernard Hopkins, and Miguel Cotto. So when my dad finally got a hold of his phone number and gave him a call, he told him that he had something he'd be really interested to see, and that he wanted to meet with him in person. and eventually they agreed to meet at the famous Wild Card Boxing Gym in Los Angeles, California, which is where my dad actually had Sergio sign a non-disclosure agreement before showing him the second prototype of Versamitts. After signing the non-disclosure, my dad actually pulled him aside into a broom closet where he showed him the prototype, and Sergio said, 25 years, Brad. 25 years I've been making mitts, and you just changed the game. So needless to say, he was really excited and happy to help us move on with the project. And this was the third prototype, first made by Sergio Garibay. And in honor of the first mitts to ever be made, which were called manoplas in Mexico, my dad had this pair made in the colors of the Mexican flag. For a few variations of the third style of prototype, my dad wanted to reduce some of the weight and size of the mitts and instructed Sergio to make them in the version you see here, which is the style that we've stuck with throughout, and they weigh in just at about 16 ounces, the same as a pair of bag gloves or sparring gloves. Being that Sergio did everything by hand and was a made-to-order custom mitt maker, these were relatively unaffordable, and we wanted something that could be more mass-produced, which is when we moved to trying to get things manufactured in China. And this was the product that we got, which was pretty good. We were happy with it, but it wasn't quite the same quality, of course, and it wasn't quite the same shape or dimensions as the Garibay mitt. Not long after that, we moved our manufacturing to some quality people in Pakistan, and they were able to produce this clone of the Garibay mitt that you see on the right. We were actually able to reduce the weight quite a bit with this one, coming in at about 12 ounces. That move allowed us to bring the price down significantly from about $600 with the Garibays to around $150 base model for the Pakistani mitts, $250 for custom pairs. Over the years, my dad has gotten Versamitts into the hands of some of the world's most elite coaches, including Robert Garcia, Buddy McGirt, Patrice Harris, Calvin Ford, Kenny Ellis, and Fareed Samad. You can actually see Fareed Samad right there on the poster behind me holding mitts for Danny Jacobs himself. And over here on this side, you can see my dad with 4-division world champ Mikey Garcia, as well as many other high-level coaches, and we greatly appreciate each and every one of them for having a forward-looking mindset and being willing to try something new and innovative for the benefit of their boxers and themselves. Through all that time, my dad put in literal blood, sweat, and tears, bringing Versamitts from its first prototype to the mitt that you see today. And even more difficult than all of the research and development was knowing that he was going to have to get it patented so that people wouldn't steal such a great idea from him. And he initiated that process just a year after the first prototype in 2016. And it wasn't until the year 2020, in October 27th, when he was finally awarded the patent that made it official that Versamitts is a new, useful scientific product. Over the years, we've seen countless variations of counterfeit Versamitts, and my dad has always shucked it off, saying that flattery is the highest form of compliment. But never have any of those counterfeit manufacturers ever tried to lay stake to the claims that Versamitts makes in its patent of being a safer, more effective product for coaches and boxers. 9 times out of 10, they just copy the product, and they don't ever try to lay stake to that claim. Which brings me to these hit and move turtle mitts. And I hate to make a video like this, but this company Hit and Move is actually trying to say that they're the ones that innovated mitt work and made it safer and better for boxers, when really, in reality, they're just piggybacking off of the Versamitts design. I had seen these turtle mitts many times before, and never had any more issue with them than the countless other knockoffs, because again, imitation is the highest form of flattery. But when I saw this post on their official Instagram page, which read, "How turtle mitts enhanced safety and superior angles is reshaping the boxing industry," and after reading that, I knew I had to say something in defense of Versamitts, so I took it upon myself to make a comment on that post, and this is what I said. Versamitts are the first and only patented focus mitt that can legally make this claim. Versamitts are the original double-sided focus mitts, invented by none other than my very own father, Coach Brad Carlton of MTK Tucson. This product is in violation of the patent he attained for the original Versamitts product, as well as any immediate and obvious variations to the original product, such as these turtle mitts by Hit and Move. After making that comment, I took a look at the rest of their page to see what else they had to say about them, which is when I came across this clip showing how they intend for them to be used in a simple demonstration, which is actually a style of video we've long considered making, but have always decided against, with the feeling that more in-depth explanations are more appropriate. So I left them a third comment, which read, "Versamitts are the original and only patented product to be able to make the scientific claim of better punch trajectories and safer shoulder, elbow, and wrist positions for the coach." And I really didn't expect to get any kind of response from Hit and Move, But before I could even finish posting this comment, I got one that was really quite shocking if you ask me. It was a picture and a voice message from what I believe to be the owner of Hit and Move. Take a listen to this voice message before we go over our conversation.
Keep trolling, coach. Keep trolling so we can see you accordingly. And anyone with the eye and brain can say what you're saying is ridiculous. But thank you. You can use our platform to advertise your shit.
And before I could finish typing my response to that voice message, he replied to my original comment for everyone to see, saying, "Good way to use our platform to advertise your MITTS, coach. Our lawyer can speak with you and make you realize that there is nothing, not even close, about turtle mitts to the rest. Thank you for the weak jab, clapping emoji. Please sue us. We would love that case to court. It's actually you that is piggybacking off the idea of Versamitts. It's an obvious ripoff of the original invention." And this was my first direct message response to that voice message. I said, "This is really a terrible look for your company. I'm not here to troll. I'm here to speak the facts that there is a patent for Versamitts that long predates your product and covers variations such as yours as a clear variation of the original product. It's obvious to anyone that Versamitts came first and are the safer and better version of the concept. You're ripping off a small business to provide a more expensive and lower quality product that targets the same original invention. The product you're showing in that picture on the left is also a ripoff of Versamitts, so the picture shows 2 patent violations. Do you have a patent for your turtle mitt design? If so, I'd love to see proof of it." In response to that, he sent me these screenshots from their website of some concept drawing, to which I immediately replied, "Those are just concepts, not a patent." He said, "You're reaching, sir." And after sending him a picture of my dad's actual patent, he said, "Please speak to lawyer and proceed to sue us." I told him, "That's a patent." He said, "You have every right to sue us for patent violations if you believe." To which I said, "I'm aware." He said again, "Please sue us." I responded, "I thought you said you would have a lawyer talk to me. What happened? Did you realize that you're wrong and that a reputable company would have reached out for some sort of licensing agreement before creating a rip-off product? Or that a reputable company would simply respond with respect and at least credit for inspiration from the original product? Imitation is the highest form of flattery, so my dad says. Thank you for the flattery." And to that he said, "You should sue us because it will bother you. You will not believe us and you should not. You must go ahead and sue, otherwise we will no longer communicate with you. Have your lawyer bring the court case, and our lawyer will respond accordingly with all of the proofs. We had no intention of copying anything from you. You do have a different product. There are things that could even be differently useful, but you are going about this the wrong way. We are an honest company and we have proof of everything, including designs and communications and idea generation. Also, we will keep your comments as defamation and sue you back, so when you lose on the case, then we will sue for all of the comments you have made, which we are documenting." To that I responded, "You're hilarious. I've already documented your ignorant and offensive language. I'm not the one that said anyone's product was shit. You did. I said your product is a ripoff, not that it was shit. If anyone is defaming, it's you. We will end this conversation. You know you didn't invent double-sided mitts. We have proof of that with our patent. I love to see people using better punch trajectories, but hate to see my dad and family getting ripped off from their hard work and ideas." Then he said, "We didn't invent double-sided mitts, we invented turtle. Turtle is not double-sided mitt. Yours is double-sided mitt, which is 2 mitts connected together. I can see the idea, good idea too, but our origination had nothing to do with your double-sided mitts. We have all the communications with many officials about how the idea started. Me texting people with the idea and all emails. Our conscience is clear, and we know we didn't take anything from you. We heard of you via a reviewer called Fit to Box. One thing you have the right to do is that you can ask him not to categorize turtle as double-sided mitts. I can agree with that because we are not double-sided mitts, and we are not even marketing for that purpose. Look, I am really sorry for how you feel about this, but I cannot give you something we didn't take." I appreciated the tone of that message, and so I responded with this, saying, "This response leads me to believe we could restart this conversation from a better place. I appreciate your recognition of the invention of double-sided mitts being credited to Versamit. That being said, I would respectfully ask what the purpose of turtle mitts is, if not to teach towards receiving blows on the backside of the mitt. It appears that you are marketing them as a secondary striking surface that teaches towards and promotes the improved trajectory of body punches, as well as improves the safety of holding mitts for the coach. These are the exact claims that Versamitts achieved in our patent. So I would ask, what is the purpose of the turtle design? It has a logo for indicating where to strike on the turtle side, which leads me to believe it's intended to be struck. and the videos you post of coaches using them shows the turtle side being struck in the same fashion as is intended for Versamitts. So if not double-sided mitts, are they a finger protector? An example of mitts without finger protection being these type. And so I sent him a couple pictures of pairs of mitts that have hand compartments with exposed fingers. And an example of finger protected mitts being these. And so I showed him a couple pairs that have finger protection. Or in other words, the fingers are covered to prevent them from being hit and reduce the chance of injury for the coach, but definitely are not intended to be struck. Much of the process of my dad achieving his patent dealt with convincing the patent office that this type of protection is not intended to be struck. A seemingly simple and obvious thing, but apparently not for the patent office. This discrepancy was one of the major factors that determined whether Versamitts was a new, useful, and patentable idea. So I reiterated, are turtle mitts intended to be struck, or are they intended to be finger protection? If they're intended to be struck, I would suggest that they're in violation of our patent regardless of their lack of a connecting web, as they're an obvious adaptation of the original Versamitts design. If they're a simple finger protector, I would suggest that you remove any marketing that would suggest that they should be held against the coach's body with the intention of being hit on the turtle side, as was part of the claims of the Versamitts patent that this is not sufficient for protection of the coach, nor for it being an original patentable idea separate from an Everlast style finger protector. Here are the very first prototype of Versamitts. My dad decided that they weren't sufficient in terms of protection and furthered the design to the Versamitts you see now. And after dropping all of that information on him, he simply said, "For any further questions, please email to sales@hitandmove.com." And I said, "Understood." During this whole conversation, he went back to the original comment I made on the post and said, "You are reaching. We're about to embarrass you." And I'll let you guys decide based on everything I've showed you so far, but quite frankly, I think he did that to himself. Especially when you consider that he retroactively went back and deleted those offensive comments in an attempt to save face with the comment you're about to see now. He said, "Hey there, we appreciate your passion. It's important to note that innovations often leads to different ideas emerging in different places, different times and designs. Let's celebrate creativity and the diversity of ideas. You had an idea, a different one, and we wish you the best of luck with that. After all, the more mitts the merrier. Boxing deserves better." And again, hit me with that generic, "Any further questions, please refer to our website or sales." I replied to that with this, saying, "I agree, the more the merrier, because it proves that there is a huge market for the idea of improved punch trajectories. I greatly appreciate the more respectful tone of this message, but I would have to respectfully disagree. The turtle mitt design is unique in this regard. They are a variation of the same idea that Versamitts invented, for the exact purpose of solving the safety and proper punch trajectory issues your product claims to solve. I would gladly celebrate your variation if you'd be willing to give credit where credit is due. The proper thing to do, in my opinion, would be to negotiate a licensing agreement. Versamitts is open to licensing the idea to any and all who show the same passion for improving boxing the way Versamitts does. My dad would greatly appreciate if you would recognize the claims of safety and proper punch trajectories are accredited to his invention. Again, I appreciate the respectful tone of this message. I believe that working together is always better than working against one another." To which they replied again, "Hey there, it seems like you might be a bit confused. While I appreciate your passion, it's important to note that turtle mitts are a unique and perfected concept in their own right, designed to offer a new level of comfort and functionality. Let's celebrate creativity. After all, the more mitts the merrier, but there is only one turtle." There really can be no confusion here. Versamitts are literally the thing that invented this new level of comfort and functionality that he's talking about. So it really is just ridiculous for him to say this. Really, there's only one turtle? It's more like there's only one way that mittwork has been innovated since its very inception, and that's Versamitts. The inception of a second striking surface is the thing that creates better punch trajectories and better safety for the coach. And yet he says they're not double-sided mitts. So after those couple of comments on the post trying to save face, this was the message I sent back. "I appreciate the tone of your last comment. I thought you'd be interested to see where in our patent the claims of punch trajectories and safety for the coaches is made and proven. I started by showing him the patent number, as well as who it's registered to, which is my dad. I showed him a few of the pages where it shows figures of how it's intended to be used being braced against the body. And as you can see in figure 20, where the pad is being held against the hip or the upper leg, it's also registered for being a striking pad that would accept kicks for MMA or any other combat sport. This passage in the patent is what the whole conversation was over. In boxing training, for example, the trainer may catch a liver shot, a type of body shot punch, using the front pad, or using the back pad. as shown in figures 18 and 20. Previously, conventional focus mitts could only catch a liver shot in a contorted position, requiring the trainer to twist the arm. Place the back of the left hand against and below the right elbow, thereby facing the front face of the focus mitt downward to catch the liver shot. Catching the liver shot with the back pad of the striking mitt as shown in figures 18 and 20 provides a more accurate simulation of an actual liver shot, and the risk of injury to the trainer is lowered because the position creates a better wrist, forearm, elbow, and shoulder pronation and flexion. Thus, the athlete may obtain more accurate simulated strikes, and the trainer is less likely to injure himself by not being forced to contort his arm into injury-prone angles by pronating, flexing, or torquing the arm or shoulder into weaker or injury-prone positions. Repetitive stress to joints of the arm and shoulder through flexed or pronated wrist, forearm, elbow, and shoulder present a significant danger to trainers. The disclosed striking mitts greatly reduce the risk of acute or chronic injury of the trainer by providing greater flexibility in positioning the striking mitt to create safer arm positions for the trainer. And guys, my dad actually had a very reputable patent lawyer, but much of what was written in the patent, including that very passage, was actually written by my dad himself. And it stands alone as the very core of the innovation. It doesn't matter whether you achieve a second striking surface with a webbing, or by sewing turtle design or whatever it is to the back of the hand compartment. The patent lies in the innovation of there being a second striking surface, and that it makes it safer and better punch trajectory for the fighter and coaches. And that's what my dad invented. And these are the last messages we sent to each other. I said, I hope this clarifies my statements that the turtle mitts are not unique in their attempt to solve the problem that Versamitts solves. I believe that they're teaching to the same claims that Versamitts makes and proves, and therefore aren't unique or innovative in that sense. They're a more compact version of the same product, which is something we at Versamitts intend to create ourselves. And he replied, this conversation is over, and you have no right to turtle mitts. Best advice for you, if you believe you were the inventor of the turtle, please do what you have to. I am at overseas, and my social media team will take over account, and they are instructed not to engage with you. We also informed our legal team about this all. Any further communication, please choose to email Hit and Move emails. And in my final response, I said, I never claimed to be the inventor of turtle mitts. I said they were a ripoff of Versamitts. I don't care what you tell your legal team. They can't do anything since we own the patent for double-sided striking mitts. Like you said earlier, we have the right to sue you if we so choose. You have no ground the other way around. You're the one that has no right to the innovation of Versamitts, which turtle mitts is a clear ripoff of. I just showed you proof, in a respectful fashion, that the claims you make about your product are clearly the patented claims of Versamitts. You just can't seem to accept that your product isn't the first to solve the problems that Versamitts solve. This all went down Saturday, February 3rd, 2024. So despite the shocking level of disrespect I received from the official Hit and Move Instagram page in regards to my comment on their post, I don't say that their product is a ripoff because it's bad, or because it doesn't achieve the same goal that Versamitts achieves. I say it's a ripoff because it's a literal ripoff of the invention of Versamitts. I believe that Versamitts is a much better and safer product, and I know that it comes from a very humble and hardworking family man in the form of my dad. It's the only double-sided mitt on the market that can actually legally make the claims that it achieved in its patent of making mitt work safer for coaches and boxers, and more efficient for boxers in the form of better punch trajectories. It would really mean the world to my dad and I if you guys would opt for the original Versamitts product over this Hit and Move knockoff that comes from a big company that's just trying to steal market share from the original idea and a small business in the form of Versamitts. I have no intention of alienating any of you out there who really enjoy the Hit and Move turtle mitt design. I'm just happy to see that coaches are performing their pad work in a much safer fashion and in a way that allows them to get in more combinations and more repetitions with their fighters without injury, and allows their fighters to see better punch trajectories and teach better skills for the fighters. I'm not saying boycott their company or boycott their products. I just wanted to make this video to shed light on the fact that Versamitts is the first and original product to lay stake to the claims that Turtle Mitts is attempting to make, and I really want to make sure that my dad gets the credit for the great idea and the blood, sweat, and tears that went into making his invention a reality. I hope you guys enjoy this video, and I hope you would consider taking a look at Versamitts and opting for them over the Turtle Mitt product. Peace out, guys.
Boy Mikey Garcia here. Just recommending you the Versamitts double-sided mitts. Very nice, very good, very comfortable. Whenever we're punching, you can use both sides of the mitt. Works very well. I love it. That's what we use here at RTPA.